Hello, this is a video from the Assessment Committee regarding the assessment of written communication. This is a guide to identifying, assessing assignments of written communication. I'm going to show you how to use the rubric and a little bit about what we are trying to do with assessing written communication. This is available as a standalone PowerPoint presentation if you want to bypass the voiceover and hearing me speak. So here we go. Here we go. All right, so when we talk about written communication, we have two different forms. First, the definition comes from our general education outcome, which is using written English effectively in a free exchange of ideas, and that is just really broad and open. We also have communication, specifically oral and written communication, as a basic skill for all college students, and that involves listening, speaking, and writing for the purpose of understanding and being understood. It's a lifetime process. Communication also involves the ability to use appropriate and reasonable language and dialects, acknowledging that audiences are diverse. So those are very broad and open definitions, which is perfect because we should all be using some form of written communication in our courses, whether it is discussion boards or just short answers, reflections, all sorts of things. When we look at the goals of written communication, and this comes from the Assessment Handbook, we're trying to demonstrate the purpose and works to show that purpose. We're trying to contain a logical order that develops and supports the main idea or thesis. We're trying to follow the requirements of the assignment. We're trying to support our ideas with pertinent details, and trying to use all elements of basic mechanics, vocabulary, grammar, and punctuation. So we can apply these 5 goals to a variety of writing assignments. When we look at written communication, it can be any work where a student interacts with the instructor, class, or material through writing. That can be summary, a term paper, a report, whether it's a lab or other types of reports, discussion boards, journal writing, reflections, reviews, really anything where a student is either typing or handwriting. It can be just about, I hate to say just about anything, but just about anything. It's not just the formal end of semester paper. So we can change our perspective a little bit about what written communication is. You don't need to be an English professor or even the best at writing yourself to assess written communication. You'll hear students say, why do I need to write? Because this is not a writing class. Why are you focusing on this? Well, being able to write well is an important thing. One thing I didn't include in here would be maybe even emails. You could look at how a student responds in email as a form of written communication. That'd be taking it to the extreme, and it wouldn't be necessarily part of the course, but how does a student respond in writing is important. So for us to understand that purpose, we should start looking at what is the goal of the assignment. So this is the first criterion, the purpose. Why is this thing a writing assignment? Why can't they tell you it in person? Well, there are many reasons. We might be answering a question or a series of questions. There might be a report, whether it's formal or informal. We might be making an argument or an assertion. Record student thoughts. That could be a reflection or just a short summary of what the student knows about something, so you as the instructor can help students learn better. You can give a written short answer question on a test or a quiz that helps you understand what the student understands. They might be summarizing an article or a chapter or a main idea. They might be making a claim. They could use writing to ask questions or explore topics or ideas. So there's a wide range of things that students can use writing for. And we have to understand as the instructor why we made this a writing assignment as opposed to another type of assignment. If it's a writing assignment for a reason, it should be accessible. The next criteria is understanding logical order and the main idea. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of stuck in this little section up here, but that's all right. All writing should have a beginning, middle, and end, right? The beginning establishes this context. It basically describes what questions being answered, provides any necessary background information. It states a purpose. It doesn't have to be this essay will or this paper will, but it has to enter that conversation in a way that is clear and understandable. The middle is kind of the meaty part, and that can be of any indeterminate length. It establishes the details and supporting information, basically what needs to be said in this writing assignment. And the end establishes a resolution or a conclusion to the writing. It either finalizes the answer to the question, provides a solution, confirms or reforms ideas, or poses new questions. Basically, how do we know this piece is done and over? So it's kind of closing the writing. The main idea is the overall point of the piece. It could be a thesis statement, a claim, or some other statement that encapsulates the goal of the paper. So if it's a summary, it might be this article by this author tries to do these things, and that could be the main idea. And the rest is, what is or how does that article do that? And so, main idea is just that overall reason for why this piece exists. The third element is the requirements of the assignment. This is what your class requires for the written work. It could be, you want a paper of 500 words, 1,000 words. It could be the subject and topic choice. It could be the research and support materials. Do you require academic sources? Do you ask the student to cite an MLA or APA? That's the required format. What citations or acknowledgement of other sources are needed, if any? You might look at originality. Like, to what level is the student required to come up with his or her own ideas, or to paraphrase correctly or summarize in a way that's not plagiarism. It's basically whatever you've told the students to do. How clear is your assignment sheet? And we had to look at, are the students following the directions? Are they using the correct font size if that is a specification? All those things matter. Supporting with pertinent details. Is everything written in that work necessary? That's the easiest way to think about it. Is everything there that needs to be there? Is anything missing? Is there enough depth? Does this work go into the topic at a level that you are expecting or that you asked that student to do? And is it satisfying to read in regards to the assignment? Do you read this and say, yeah, that's what I was looking for? Or are you looking at it and saying, well, you missed the point completely? Those are things that we can start to look at in our assessment. And the final element is the elements of basic usage. So is the writing clear? We're not looking at, okay, do you know every rule for how to use a comma? Because we've all learned different in grammar. Grammar rules are always changing, and it might depend on the type of formatting you're following. So is the writing clear? That's the most important thing. Can you understand it? Are there distracting errors, whether it's word choice, spelling errors, weird punctuation, and they're using 5 exclamation points instead of a question mark, things like that? Those things you should feel confident enough to be able to evaluate. Does the student use appropriate terminology and vocabulary for the discipline? Is the student using slang when he or she shouldn't be? Is it the wrong terminology for that discipline? Those are important things. Does the work follow the appropriate conventions for the discipline? Again, MLA, APA, Chicago, whatever it is. Again, you're not here to be the grammar instructor. You can be if you want, if that's your expectation, but students should rise to those expectations if you ask them to. If the writing's horrible, then you can point it out and say the writing's horrible, you can't follow it. But does it impede the understanding of the purpose and the main idea? Those are things that we're looking at with the element of basic usage, not whether or not every single punctuation mark is correct. Those sorts of things. You can look at that if you want to, but you don't have to. So when we assess written communication, the steps should be as follows. We select the assignment or a collection of assignments. You can look at all the students' discussion boards if you have several of them, and assess with that. Look at the assignment that you wish to use for the assessment. and then refer to the assignment guidelines. These guidelines are the basis for how well the selected student meets that criteria, which are context and purpose, development and organization, topic and discipline, support and evidence, and mechanics. And so when we look at these questions, context and purpose, does the written work meet the goal of the assignment? If it's a summary, does it summarize? If it's an argument, does it make an argument? Those sorts of things. Development and organization. Does the work meet the assignment criteria or discipline guidelines for how the information is arranged? Does it flow chronologically? Does it have an argument with support? Or is it just all over the place? Can you follow the ideas? When it comes to topic and discipline, does this work follow the guidelines of the assignment and the discipline? So there's two things in there. First, does the student do what you ask the student to do in that work? And secondly, if you're in a science class, does it follow the discipline of science? If it's psychology, does it follow the discipline of psychology? If it's nursing, if it's math, if it's English, I'm going to leave out some of the divisions, I'm sorry, but whatever discipline you're in, does it meet those conventions? Support and evidence. Does the work contain sufficient information presented in a way that is appropriate for the assignment and discipline? Meaning, does the work make references to what's appropriate for that discipline? If it's, early childhood education and it's talking about healthcare, well, that's not quite the same. So we have to look at, what is appropriate for evidence and support for that assignment? How does a student connect his or her main idea towards that main goal, that purpose? Finally, mechanics. Is that work clear, understandable, and correct? When we score the rubric, I'll jump to the rubric real quick. This is the rubric. You can see there's marked through 1 through 5, with 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. When we score the rubric, we mark a 1 if that outcome is missing for the assignment. Chances are it's not a very good paper that you've received if it's scoring a 1. And let's say, if a student turned in a handwritten paper without citations when the assignment was supposed to be a typed research paper, you can mark a 1 in purpose and topic selections if you want to. You can mark a 2 if you want, but maybe because the student actually turned something in and did some research. It's all in your interpretation, but a 1 will be sufficient. Similarly, a 2, that outcome is present, but you're unsure if the student truly understands it. So let's say you assign something that requires academic research, but the student refers to Wikipedia and YouTube. They might cite it correctly, but it's not the right research that you wanted. Maybe the work in Wikipedia that they're citing is from an academic source, but they're very lazy about it. A 1 or 2 would be okay in either situation. It's how you interpret those rules of your assignment guidelines compared to whether you deem something as present or lacking. As we get up higher in the score, 3 is our average. It's acceptable, it's bare minimum. They did just everything required, but it's not necessarily something that you're thrilled about. Let's say a student provides support with the required 3 examples, but 2 of those examples aren't really that different. You might score that at 3 because it technically met the goal of the assignment, which was to provide 3 examples, but the way they did it was kind of cheating, or skirting the rules, not cheating. You would mark a 4 for outcomes that meet that level that you would hope students would meet, right? You want them to do well. The work is clear, interesting, and engaging. Maybe it has an introduction that goes way beyond what's expected. You would mark 4 in an organization section, unless that was your best one. And maybe you would mark that as a 5 because, wow, the student really went over and beyond what you had hoped. And 5 is where it's outstanding. It's exemplary work is what it says. It's something that you want to show and share with others. Say, this is what I would love. It'd be my dream for every one of my students to present something at this level all the time. It's fairly rare, and it's okay if it's not rare. That's a wonderful thing too. So we have our rubric. We're just scoring this based on what you feel. Again, you can look at a collection of discussion boards and mark it this way. You could look at a collection of journal entries and also score this. So you can do an individual assignment. Maybe you have a 10-page term paper that they have to do. You're welcome to use that. And you say, okay, well, overall, did the student demonstrate the purpose of the assignment and the context? Yes or no, and where on that level? If it's a no, then right here. Then if it's yes, it's where on the scale does that student work fall? Same way. Oh, I just moved. The same way it goes for development, organization, topic and discipline, support, evidence, and mechanics. So I want you to remember that we need to adhere to the original standards and guidelines of your assignment. You're not grading this as a writing teacher. You're grading this as your own discipline. We're using the rubric to assess the key indicators and outcomes. So that's an important thing. And finally, I would like you to remember that you don't need to be part of the English faculty or an expert in writing to assess written communication. You are all smart and qualified people. You can use your judgment, because you're the content expert, to assess how well the students are communicating in writing. This assignment grade and the assessment score might be similar, but they might be different, and that's okay for both of them. We're looking at trying to understand how our students are learning so we can make improvements. That's the main goal, is how can we help our students learn better? And finally, assessment is of student learning, not of instructor teaching. It's not used for a review. It's not used in any way to be punitive or to say, well, these people over here in this department aren't doing anything. It doesn't reflect your hard work. It reflects on what students are demonstrating. And the goal would be for assessment to evaluate the results and then help you help your students better. And that is ultimately the goal. So I hope this presentation is helpful. If you have questions, you can contact me at the assessment committee. Just send me an email and everything will be good. So thank you very much.